This presentation was put together by Dr. Bev Byram, who's our lab director, and so my part of this is simply delivery of her presentation. So, without further ado, I'll talk a little about SE. It's a major cause of human salmonellosis. Obviously, infection appeared to be increasing worldwide from 80 to the 90s. Raw egg or lightly cooked eggs implicated in 78 was the percentage of outbreaks reported in 93 by CDC, FDA, and USDA. So risk reduction became a real goal of that. So it's not associated with illness in adult birds, as many of you know, mostly young birds. The organisms are shed intermittently in manure of adult birds. Increases with stressing molding particularly. May be passed in intact eggs. How often does that occur? Don't know. USDA reported in 2000, assuming 35% of U.S. SE flocks prevalence rate, 1 in 20,000 eggs. That actually ends up being about 1 in every 200,000 eggs, if you look at that more closely. The flock prevalence rates in states with egg quality assurance programs, I think there's much lower. We've despite DeCoster, we've been in that 5-6% range of flock prevalence. I think many states are beyond that. We started our egg quality assurance program back in '97, and it was in conjunction with Ohio Poultry Association and OSU and producers. Best management practices, inspections and testing, and over 95% of our eggs produced in Ohio are from member flocks. So we've had good compliance with our egg quality assurance program. So when the new FDA program came into effect, we actually are more strict than the FDA rules, actually. If you look at the testing history we have back in '04, there was an increase in the amount of testing in our flocks, and we found more. So it goes back to the whole environmental sampling type issues. If you test, you're probably going to find it. So, and that's what we did. And now our testing of our flocks, since July of last year with the mandatory FDA rule, we are testing more flocks. We're finding more environmental samples to be positive. So greater than 50,000 birds, we had in July of 2012, we'll have all of our birds, all of our flocks that'll be testing, but majority of our flocks are already testing for SE, and we have around 31 million layers right now. So similar to our egg quality assurance program, where biosecurity to me is key. It is to me the number one thing that should be done. And again, I think that a lot of biosecurity plans are there. They're just not implemented very well. So that's the unfortunate part, and that's the part that's going to end up being critical when it comes to identifying these herds and positive SE herds. So best management practice is critical. Environmental testing, FDA's recognized that. MPIP environmental methods, we haven't changed those testing at all, so we continue with those. Egg testing requires the FDA BAM method and equivalent methods as well. So best management practices, doing pullets at 14 to 16 weeks, layers at 40 to 45 weeks. When we look at environmental positives, clean out only is what has been happening in the past. Eggs got to be diverted, so they get half the cost of revenues that they have when they aren't diverting those eggs. So the egg test results within 10 days of an environmental positive, 1,000 eggs every 2 weeks for 4 samplings. And I'll show you. We probably have done more sampling than any state, quite honestly. It's been a real pain in the butt, quite honestly. But our quality assurance program, best management practices, environmental testing at 8 to 12 weeks instead of that 14 to 16 weeks, and layers at the end of the lay, and clean, disinfect, and inspections. So once they are cleaned and disinfected, my staff will make sure that they're able to repopulate. Eggs are diverted. So negative test, egg test results before entering the table market, 1,000 eggs every 2 weeks for 4 samplings. So now with the pre-FDA testing and our safety rule, our audits were performed annually, and average unit was 4 hours with 1 inspector. Now we're looking at 14 to 16 weeks, and again layers at 40 to 45 weeks. We clean, disinfect, and inspect. Our eggs must be diverted until a negative test is done. Negative test results before entering in the table market, 1,000 eggs every 2 weeks for 4 samplings. So now our average audit now is 8 hours with 2 inspectors, because of the increased amount of records and stuff that we have to do on these audits now. It's more thorough document review, and it's a lot more intensive inspections. So the egg rule at a glance, you can see that you have a negative, no more testing. If you have a positive, then you divert those eggs from the flock for the life of the flock. And then if you're negative again, you have 4 consecutive tests. If there's any positive in that group, then you keep testing, keep testing, keep testing. So it's very, very elaborate and requires a lot of work. So we have tested, since July of last year, we have tested 72,000 eggs in Ohio. Very labor intensive, takes up a lot of my staff's time, and it's just amazing. So the BAM egg culture method is what we continue to do. We incubate those egg pools at room temperature for 4 days. The necropsy floor, I keep saying the necropsy floor stinks. And it stinks worse than a rhinoceros dead out there, because these eggs in those 4 days, in the pre-enrichment and in the enrichment, and then plating on those culture media to improve the rate of detection, requires 10 days to complete if it's negative. If it's positive, then you still have another 2 to 3 days of testing. So it's labor intensive, and it's very difficult to get done. Simply a slide to show that the ID and isolation of the salmonella in the eggs, and how much work it actually entails, and how timely it is with the streaking and incubation period of time. So this is our lab. This is our necropsy lab. And I had them take samples or pictures of a typical day of SE testing in our lab. So you can see how we've iodined those. You can see how they set an incubation for 4 days in those bags, and how they're pooled, and cracking of the eggs. And it takes, we pull in field staff actually to come in and help during those days of the testing. So incubate for 96 hours at room temperature. So they're set in those 50 pools total, 20 eggs per pool. We put them in the biodegradable bags in our necropsy room. And after 96 hours incubation, we inoculate those eggs into the TSB media, And I've actually done this stuff because I didn't have a clue. You know, my swine background doesn't get me very far in the egg world. And so I made it a point to spend till 10 o'clock one night going back in the lab and actually doing this stuff because I wanted to know how much I was spending of my staff's time to do these things. So I know how to do this stuff. And it's pretty interesting because as we move through those transfer into the TSBs and the RVs and the TT broths, and then when you start bringing the chickens in, 60 chickens in, and I went out on the necropsy floor and I killed those chickens, and I did them. I did the beating of the tissues. I took the samples and did all that stuff, and there's a reason why I stuck with swine. But the bottom line is I'd learned how to do this stuff because my staff had to do this stuff, and I have a greater appreciation for it. And so by day 7, we do these inoculations and isolations on this media. Now, there's only 3 plates required there. We do 5, just because it's easier to identify and pull off those isolates in our lab than it is just with the 3. So we use the selective media, and we do it by 5 samples instead of just 3, because on day 8, when we examine and read and re-isolate those salmonella cultures, it's much easier when you use the 5 plates. So on day 8 and 9, then we examine those and read the re-isolates and the suspect colonies that we have on McConkeys, and we apply those biochemicals, and you can see the different reactions that apply. And again, I did all this just because I needed to know. I need to understand how much work this actually was in our lab. So FDA approved the rapid testing methods, which we've been doing for quite some time in Ohio. So when we look at the environmental samples, we still do the rapid check, select medias for SE and the test systems, and we also do the Neogen reveal the SE test systems as well, and then we do the PCRs on the eggs as well. So when we look at all of these different tests and the PCRs as a screen test, we still do the culture work to totally identify that, because the PCRs will give us positives on most of those exams when we do those, because at some point in time there's been positive there. So the advantages of the rapid screening tests: if they're negative, you're great. It's a rapid turnaround time, not as labor intensive, and easy automation. Certainly, when you look at the whole overall, particularly with the labor cost, it's a lot cheaper to do that. So if the screening tests are positive, then we continue to do the FDA BAM method, culture method, to identify that further on. That's my staff. That's my hard-working staff. They do more work than I do, and very proud of them. And they just they get it done.